Number 8. The Golden Ticket Scam. If it was guaranteed you could get into heaven by just buying a ticket, would you do it? One couple managed to convince multiple people that they could literally buy their way into heaven by selling fake, quote, golden tickets. Yup, you heard that correctly. Simply present your golden ticket to God at the pearly gates and bada boom, bada bing, you'll be living it up as an angel. The couple actually made some money doing it too, $100 a pop. Geniuses or lunatics? Who did they think they were? Willy Wonka? Their names were Tito and Amanda Watts, and you can probably guess by just looking at their mugshots that they were lying to customers through their teeth, well, the few teeth that they had left. While Tito was being arrested, he kept swearing the tickets were legit, claiming that Jesus gave them to him behind a KFC so he could get money for outer space. Considering what Tito was selling, his story wasn't all that surprising. His wife confirmed his story. They were trying to get to space. Why? Well, she told police it was in order to smoke cocaine. Oh yes, it's all making sense now. The police confiscated multiple crack pipes, thousands of dollars in cash, as well as, for some odd reason, a baby alligator. What was the baby alligator for? We want to know just as bad as you. Number 7. Real-life war dogs. Have you ever seen the hit film War Dogs? Did you know it was actually based on a true story? Ephraim DiVrioli was just 19 years old when he owned the AEY Inc. Arms Company. At the age of 23, David Mordecai Pacos joined the AEY company, and by the year 2006, they had amassed over 149 contracts. A short time later, the pair landed a massive deal with the US government. AEY was to supply the Afghan army with millions of AK-47 rounds, along with rockets and other heavy artillery, for a whopping $300 million. Yeah, it's safe to say these two were in way over their heads, but the temptation was just too much. The money was too good. These two normal stoner dudes turned into some of the biggest arms dealers in history. They were literally starring in their own Hollywood movie before the Hollywood movie ever came out. According to the contract with the US, Pacos and DiVrioli were supposed to get the weaponry from Albania, but they were actually getting it from China, which was a direct violation of the original agreement. It was even worse than that because the US bans all Chinese ammunition. The men actively covered up the fact that the rounds were created in China by removing the Chinese markings on all crates the guns were stored in. After the US discovered the scam, they did not take the axe lightly. DiVrioli and Pacos were charged with fraud. DiVrioli was sent to prison for 4 years on account of conspiracy to defraud the United States, and Pacos was given 7 months of house arrest. Oh, and just moments before DiVrioli was arrested, he told authorities he would never leave the arms business. Once a gun runner, he boasted, always a gun runner. Number 6. The Nigerian Billionaire. The Nigerian Instagram star known as Hush Puppy has been busted in a cyber scam worth over $431 million. The guy's real name is Raymond Abbas, and he has over 2 million followers on his social media account. He loves to show off his rich lifestyle. He's the kind of guy that records himself throwing $100 bills around like confetti. He wears designer clothes, drives luxury cars, and flies all over the world on private jets. But he won't be flying anywhere now because he just got busted in Dubai. He was caught ripping off credit card information. He was targeting victims overseas by making fake websites, and these websites were poor copies of already known companies and banks. So when people put in their credit card information, he was able to steal their money. Wow, Hush Puppy, that is cold. He passed himself off as an affluent and very wealthy real estate developer, but the truth is that he was just a great big phony. His apartment in Dubai was raided by the FBI and Interpol while he was sound asleep. They secured just around $37 million in cash. The investigators also found about 2 million email addresses from victims stored on computers, phones, and hard drives. Even though he was busted in Dubai, the Nigerian fake billionaire is still accused of fraud in the United States and Europe. I guess he won't be posting anything on Instagram. Do you know anyone that posts ridiculous stuff like this online? Call them out in the comments below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 5. Scott Rothstein. You know those mega rich businessmen who fly exclusively on private jets to one of their vacation homes on some private island? Scott Rothstein was one of those men. But how did he become so filthy rich? Well, he got his money by scamming the wealthy elite. Rothstein was a lawyer as well as a shareholder and the CEO of the Rothstein Rosenfeld Adler law firm. It was discovered in 2009 that he, along with some of the other higher-ups at the firm, were guilty of involvement in a $1.2 billion Ponzi scheme. What's a Ponzi scheme? It's a type of scam that tricks investors into putting a buttload of money into a certain project. Little do they know, their money isn't actually going into the intended project. Instead, it's going into the pockets of earlier investors. While the early investors think the money is coming from the project, it's actually coming from the new funds, and the cycle just keeps repeating itself. The FBI eventually caught on to what Rothstein was doing though, and in November of 2009 they issued a search warrant for the law firm's offices in Fort Lauderdale. Spooked by the feds, he got on his private jet and fled to Casablanca with $16 million. He was either too scared of what the police might do to him, or he couldn't face his guilt. Probably both. He just couldn't handle it. Rothstein wrote a suicide message to his partners, but thankfully, they were able to talk him out of it. On June 9, 2010, justice was served. Scott received his prison sentence, and he would serve 50 years in prison, and rightfully so. Number 4. Reid Slatkin. Ponzi schemes seemed to be insanely popular in the early 2000s. Another horrible scam was conducted by a man known as Reid E. Slatkin. He stole over $500 million from investors. But he claimed he only committed the crimes because he was being threatened. Slatkin was a member of the famed Church of Scientology, and he said that they were threatening him to trick investors so the church could steal all the money. But the church adamantly denied the allegations. The church was a major part of Slatkin's life. He was converted at an early age after the death of his father. It was a rocky time in the man's life. He practically grew up in the church. The church is famously known for being a little sketchy, so it wouldn't be all that shocking if his claims of harassment for donations turned out to be true. But there wasn't enough evidence of this, and the church was never seen at fault. As part of a deal Slatkin made with the government, he assisted investigators in taking down and uncovering the depths of the scheme. But Judge Morrow believes Slatkin was still playing the game, since he would often wait until hints of evidence were found before admitting anything, indicating there could be more he was trying to cover up. In the end, he was given a 14-year prison sentence. John Poitras, one of the people on the wrong end of the scam, said this sentence was an insult to the victims, since he and many of his friends lost entire life savings. Along with the much-deserved jail time, Slatkin was ordered to pay back $240 million to his victims. Number 3. The Dale. Have you ever watched an infomercial late at night? You know, the ones trying to get you to buy plexiglass spray or an air fryer. Well, ads like that have been playing for decades. Even in the 70s, people were tricked into buying all kinds of things they didn't really need. And a lot of the time when you actually receive the ridiculous thing you ordered, it doesn't really live up to the 3 a.m. expectations. Well, Liz Carmichael was a master at convincing people to buy stuff like this. The fuel crisis of 1974 led to a consumer need for more energy-efficient vehicle options. Enter the Dale, a low-cost, efficient, stylish, three-wheeled car. Sounds too good to be true? Well, you're absolutely right. Carmichael got $30 million in investments, close to about $210 in today's money, and she was planning on revolutionizing the vehicle industry. Little did the investors know, Carmichael had a pretty colorful past. She was born as Jerry Dean Michael, who just so happened to be running from the feds for charges related to counterfeiting. Liz was the ultimate con artist, and got national attention for her biggest con yet, the Dale. She got the 20th Century Motor Car Company involved and quickly began advertising her sweet, three-wheeled car. Some of the taglines called it, quote, the most exciting new car of the century, the first space-age automobile, even describing it as, quote, designed and built like it is ready to be driven to the moon. These were some pretty far-out claims for an equally far-out looking vehicle. Liz told investors that they would sell over 200,000 models, but here's the scam. They only ever made 3 prototypes. The neon yellow cars were full of motorcycle parts with no steering wheel mechanism, gas pedals, not even a suitable motor. The only motor in it came from a lawnmower. The futuristic Dale couldn't go faster than 30 miles, let alone drive to the freaking moon. Carmichael was found out and sent to prison. Number 2. James Paul Lewis Jr. The Ponzi scheme strikes again. In 2004, a 57-year-old Southern California investment advisor by the name of James Paul Lewis Jr. scammed investors out of $814 million. Putting on a front as an investment advisor, James would fool his clients into investing their money into certain, quote, businesses, while really just stealing it all in an elaborate sham. James once owned a large investment firm called the Orange County Firm Financial Advisory Consultants, but it was shut down due to his crimes. Lewis had been scamming his trusting clients for over 20 years. He actually scammed 5,200 people in his entire criminal career. That is a lot of people he pretended to help. The FBI raided his office in December 2004, only to find a mere 2.3 out of the whopping $814 million he was supposed to have on hand for his clients, many of whom were old people and needed the money to get through retirement. The feds found out that Lewis had sent some of the money overseas and traded it into foreign currency while also using it to buy fancy homes, luxury cars, and more. U.S. District Judge Cormac Carney sentenced Lewis to 30 years, which is the maximum prison sentence for his crimes. The judge also ordered him to pay back $156 million in restitution. To this day, Lewis is still in prison, but only $11 million of that $156 million has been recovered. Number 1. COVID Relief Money Scam. Our final listing might strike home. Without a doubt, 2020 was a year for the history books. COVID-19 came out of nowhere. Plans were ruined and everyone was forced to stay at home. No one could have predicted or successfully prepared for these kinds of circumstances, and it was in this terrible year that some people took full advantage of the chaos and fear surrounding the virus. Scammers stole over $4.2 billion from struggling individuals. To compare, only $7.6 billion was taken from unsuspecting victims from 2017 to 2019. The FBI released the news of 2020's record online in a crime report this past March. It's estimated that the $4.2 billion figure is just a rough one. Oftentimes, people that get scammed are too embarrassed to come forward and file a report, so the numbers could actually be, in reality, much higher. A Facebook group created for scam victims with over 700 members did a survey that showed almost 75% of people were, quote, too ashamed to file a report. The scammers had multiple methods of getting what they wanted. Many would fake accounts on social media sites like Facebook and Instagram. Some would even go on dating sites or apps used for games. Under these fake personas, they would innocently start a simple conversation with their mark with a pre-written script, assiduously crafted to deceive gullible victims. After forming some kind of, quote, connection, the scammer would then make up an excuse for why they needed money. Whether it was issues after losing their job during COVID or fraudulent medical problems, those they were targeting felt bad for their new friend and would often send money to help. In California alone, over 69,000 people were scammed. It's truly messed up that someone would take advantage of people during such a vulnerable time. It's even more sad that they were so successful in doing so. Don't forget the popular saying, stranger danger, and remember, it's only a scam if you fall for it. Thanks for watching. What do you think about some of the biggest scams in history? Did you or anyone you know fall victim to any of these? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time on the Bored Badger.